Hey guys, Richard Aficionado Channel and Reefs.com. We're actually in Reef-A-Palooza, Chicago, but this show is so rumbling for the first show. It's crazy. So I actually had to kidnap Clayton of Reef Nutrition to come here and chat us about some of his new pods. Chad, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm absolutely pleased with the turnout of this first Reef-A-Palooza in Chicago.
Right,
it is great.
Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah. And this is a perfect time to talk because the raffle's going on right now. So
right.
This is
This
great.
is a quiet area, so very nice.
Yeah, it was totally unexpected, and I'm so glad to be sponsoring this show. And it's just something that we really support. And the attendees and the quality of the vendors is just it's just second to none. It's great. So
yeah, and I mean it's so well organized, and the venue itself is also very nice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're very happy to be back in the Midwest and be back in Chicago, and we've got a lot of love here and a lot of stores that carry our stuff. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Nice. So Copa guy. So we're here, and then about a couple weeks ago, I actually tried your pod, Apex pod, for the first time. So can you tell me a little bit more about them?
Okay, so the apex pods, the species is Apocyclops panamensis, and I can give you a little bit of biology and where the geography of where they are. So this is a species that exists from like the Brazilian coast all the way up into the Carolinas. They're found in the Everglades, in the Caribbean, and a lot of islands like the Cayman Islands. It's a species that occupies multiple aquatic environments. So they're in full freshwater, they're in brackish, and they're in coastal, full salinity. So it's a species that has a wide distribution throughout the Gulf of Mexico, and I believe that even some of them have made their way over to Morocco and the Canary Islands, probably due to shipping lanes and ballast water and stuff like that. And they're in the Panama Canal, so they're probably on the West Coast or in the Pacific. So
pods are taking over.
Yeah. It's a very popular species, very hardy animal, and we acquired them originally from hobbyists that were working with them, and told us that they were virtually indestructible, that they outlived their contaminants, that they didn't require live algae, that you could feed them to certain species that that you're breeding, larval fish. They had a very small naupliar size of about 70 micron. So that's a very useful organism for marine ornamental larval rearing, as well as food fish. They've been used with red snapper. We have people that are going to work with them on grouper and tuna, and so it's a species of copepods that's not only applicable for the hobby, and we'll get into more of that and why they're applicable, but they're also being widely used in aquaculture. And so it's a species that we just really champion, and apex was the best word we could find for them.
It's funny,
the top, it's the pinnacle.
Apex. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were like, what can we call them? Pinnacle pods, top pods, apex pods. So,
there you go.
So that's kind of how the name came out. And I've been working with these guys for about 3 years before we brought them into the hobby. Was very impressed with their production levels, their tolerance, the fact that they keep their cultures contamination free. They eat ciliates, they eat rotifers.
Wait, they eat ciliates too?
Yeah, they eat ciliated protozoans. They eat rotifers. So all of these things that are potential contaminating organisms that everybody in aquaculture are familiar with, they tend to consume them and keep their own cultures clean. So there's really no worry.
And then the larvae fish, in turn, eats them as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's double win right there.
Yep. And I started feeding them our non-viable algae, which means the algae is not alive. And Tim Reed, the owner of Reed Mariculture, is like, let's get them on the stuff that we freeze. So one of our products is RotoGrow Plus. It can be frozen for 2 years. So after this product is frozen, I thaw it out and I start feeding them. And one of the cool things about the algae that we feed them is that it is also contamination free because it's been frozen. And contaminants cannot survive that. But the algae cells do perfectly fine. They don't get destroyed by the freezing process. They stay fully intact, and the blend is very good of what we're feeding them. It's a blend of different species of algae, and so we really started working on them. And 3 years later, I started perfecting production techniques and protocols, and then we were like, well, we're ready to release these into the hobby, because we wanted to give our customers more options for zooplankton biodiversity to increase biodiversity in an aquarium. So.
Right. And I think that having that diversity is so important in our aquarium. Now, compared to the tetrapods, which is widely popular from you guys, what's the difference in what do they do in our aquarium that's compared to, like, let's say, tetrapods?
Yeah, so copepods are in virtually every aquatic environment on the planet. They're one of the most abundant animals on the planet. It's just amazing. They're found everywhere. They're found in mountains. They're found at the bottom of the ocean. Many of them are parasitic. A lot of them are found in estuaries and coastal zones. And they tend to consume organic waste. They are known for eating a lot of diatoms. They are known for eating dinoflagellates.
Really?
They're known for eating different cyanobacteria, things like that. So
really?
So
a lot of things that us hobbyists frown upon or is a bane of our hobby, it eats away at them.
Right, yeah, exactly. They are known to eat those things. Now, whether they're, effective enough at clearing out a dinoflagellate, infestation in an aquarium remains to be seen, or, scientifically proven, things like that. But they are known to consume those things, and you can go to Google Scholar and Google those things and find all kinds of research papers that have been done. So zooplankton biodiversity in an aquarium means that, you're getting these small crustaceans, they're related to crabs and lobsters and shrimp. And they get into the tank. They're very small. They hide in the crevices. They hide in the reef rock and in your substrate and refugiums. And they consume organic waste. They help to break down organic waste so that things like protein skimmers and the mesh filters and things like that can strip out those things.
Gotcha. Now, when I got this Apex pod, looks like the bottle, it had like greenish water. Is that phyto that's inside there?
Yeah. So many of you are familiar with tetrapods. You find them in the refrigerator in local fish stores. And the reason is because we pack so many pods in a bottle that there's a lot of respiration going on. So they're taking up a lot of oxygen. They're also, consuming a lot of their metabolic reserves and, the energy that they have in them. And so tetrapods can be refrigerated because they can tolerate cold temperatures. They tolerate hot temperatures. They're eurythermic. So they're very hardy. And so we use that to our advantage. So tetrapods, in a refrigerator can last a lot longer in a pet store. They also are slowed down metabolically, so they don't need to be fed. Now, here's the Apex pods do not tolerate refrigerator temperatures. In fact, it kills them within 3 or 4 days. And so what we had to do was, since they're being held at room temperature and their metabolism is at full speed, they need to be fed. They need food in there with them. And so we add live algae in the bottle, and that's the green coloration you're seeing. And that algae is Nanochloropsis, and that provides them with enough food and energy to survive in the bottle. They're actually reproducing in the bottle. They're releasing nauplii. And so when the customer buys them, you've got reproductively active copepods. We only put animals in Apex pods that are above 100 microns. So you're not getting the larval copepods, you're getting the juveniles, and you're getting fully mature adults. So when they go in the aquarium, they're ready to reproduce, they're ready to colonize, and they're very robust at that point.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And then what are some of the price ranges from? Do they only come in one size bottles, or do you sell bigger size bottles if necessary?
Currently, we only sell them in 6-ounce bottles. The Apex pods, we tend to pack about 2,000 per bottle, whereas the Tigers is roughly 3,000. But yeah, right now it's only 6-ounce bottles. Now there are some select customers like Worldwide Corals and Rafa, we send out some bulk copepods in bags, like 100,000, 200,000 adults, so that people can seed large coral systems, or like Worldwide Corals, they seeded their lagoon to get that microfauna in there, to expand the biodiversity of those systems. Because live rock does come with pods and different organisms, but typically, live rock that comes from the Pacific and things like that aren't going to have these species in them. So it's good to get more diversity into those rocks, and then people start off with tanks that with rock that's synthetic, that's man-made, and that has nothing in it. So this is a great way to get that microfauna into the tank.
So once we introduce these kind of pods into our system in our aquariums, do we need to do anything in particular to keep them thriving in our system?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way we grow them at our farm is we feed them phytoplankton, and a lot of the species that are in our Phyto Feast product, and even in our shellfish diet formulation that we sell to oyster growers, these species are totally applicable for for copepods to help provide them with the proper nutrition for reproduction and growth. This is what they're consuming in nature. And so it's good to dose phytoplankton to a tank. Not only does it feed, filter feeders like clams and feather dusters, sponges, tunicates, a lot of non-photosynthetic corals consume phytoplankton, but the zooplankton also do as well. And if you have a refugium in your aquarium, that's great, especially if it has macroalgae growing in it and a lot of substrate, rubble, things like that. These are good habitats for copepods. And so supplementing what they're eating from in the aquarium with a phytoplankton product like PhytoFeast is very good. It helps to boost their populations and keep them thriving. And one thing we like about the apex pods as compared to the tigger pods is that they're a lot less conspicuous. They're about the third the size of a tigger pod. They don't have that red coloration, the carotenoid that tigger pods are most famous for. They're notorious for storing that carotenoid. Apex pods do not do that. It doesn't mean that they have a less nutritional value, but it does mean that they have a better chance at sustaining a population in a reef tank. Of course, this all depends on predators. If you've got wrasses that eat copepods and multiple mandarin dragonets, pipefish seahorses, those things can ravage a zooplankton population. So feeding them phytoplankton and also adding more copepods from time to time to bolster those populations is always a good idea. So
gotcha.
So yeah, those are all things that we provide, and one thing that people like about us is we're very consistent. Every bottle is the same. And we also have strict biosecurity protocols. So these copepods are grown in compartmentalized rooms that are far from sources of contamination. We don't work with fish at our farm, so there's no fish contamination to worry about.
Super biosecurity.
Oh yeah, because our customers rely on us for clean cultures, for non-contaminated cultures. Because if we sell contaminated cultures to our customers, it could potentially ruin their business. And so it's something we take a lot of pride in, is our consistency. And I'm very proud of all the people I work with at Reed Mariculture, because we all take it very seriously. Something we take a lot of pride in.
Every once in a while, I'd say about like quarterly or so, I usually dose your tigger pods and your apex pod into my 10-gallon tank, as well as my main 210-gallon tank. The reason why I started on the 10-gallon tank is because I picked up captive bred mandarins from biota. But what's the funny thing is that fish, because it is captive bred, readily eats your TDOB. And then, but like every once in a while, I like to give them a wild treat, special treat. And then whenever I put those pods in, I do it very scientifically, like I just dump it all in there. Very scientifically.
The shotgun method.
Exactly. And you could see, it knows it's there, and and it's funny because it never saw it in the wild, but it instinctively knows that it's his food and just goes after it like crazy. And I could only imagine with all the other fish that you mentioned earlier, like pipefish, dragonets and wrasses and even small anthias. They'll go crazy over it.
Planktivores. That's something that is very interesting to note, is that while it's awesome that you can feed mandarins pellets and dead copepods and dead food items like mysis shrimp, it's just awesome for them to maintain that hunting instinct, that they're constantly searching and foraging for pods. They also eat bacteria. They also eat algae. They found all these things in their gut. Scientists have, and so it's really cool to provide them with live feed organisms to keep that instinct going and strong in their body. And we have plenty of customers that say, we add live copepods, they eat them, but they also continue to eat the pellets. So it's not like once you add copepods to the system, they'll never eat the pellet ever again.
No,
that typically doesn't happen.
This will be like a special treat, for them, and it's good for them because it's something that they already consume in the wild. That's their already their food. Something that they're so used to for millions of years.
Exactly. And they're a foraging species. They're like many reef fishes.
They're always constantly picking up something.
And that's what people don't realize, is that all of these fish that we have in our tank, on the reef, they're constantly feeding.
Yeah.
And so if you can provide small amounts of food multiple times a day for these animals, it's just a win-win.
So if I get these apex pods, and then if I don't feed all at once into my aquarium, and like let's say like I add more salt water and just, you know, they keep breeding in there, how long do they usually last in a bottle, and how long do they usually live as an animal?
Yeah, good question. So unlike the tiger pods, which can be refrigerated and, you know, can be stored for weeks, you know, 4 to 6 weeks, these guys, since they don't tolerate cold temperatures and we can't slow them down metabolically, we always recommend that, you know, as soon as you get the apex pods in, whether you're a retail store or you're a hobbyist end user, you just, you know, try to get them into your tank within the first week or two, and then that way, you know, they will continue to reproduce and get a good start. These guys in my culture areas will live from anywhere from 45 to 60 days, and continue to reproduce throughout that time frame. Of course, as they get older, reproduction starts to slow down, and females live longer than males. Males tend to have shorter digestive systems, and once they reach sexual reproduction and maturity, their goal in life is to just mate with multiple females. The females actually store the sperm, so they can fertilize their own embryos as they go. They only need one mating occurrence. They store the sperm, produce nauplii and larval copepods for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Wow.
And then you know, they reach senescence and their life is over. And so yeah, it's great that they can live that long and reproduce that long. We really use that to our advantage. So
it's pretty funny how we're talking about it like this. That's why they call him Copa Guy. Well, Chad, thank you so much for spending some time with us, letting us know about these new pods that you have, and always being on the forefront of aquaculture and just supporting the hobby like you do. I mean, because like you guys don't get enough credit that you guys deserve, because you guys help out with so many different things like MBI, you know, Roger Williams University. You guys help Biota, you know, like you guys help so many different aquaculture places for them to achieve what they're achieving. So I thank you so much from the hobby, from people that know. We thank you, and thank you so much for the great products. And I look forward to your some more innovation from you in the future.
Right on. Thank you very much.
Have a good show, buddy.
Yeah.